You weren't supposed to find this video by accident. Let me be very clear about something. The fact that you're here right now, listening to these words, is not random. Something in your field shifted, and that shift sent a signal. That signal brought you here. You might think it was the algorithm, or curiosity, or just scrolling at the right time. But there's a deeper mechanism at play, and by the end of this, you'll understand exactly what it is. Your quantum field just received an upgrade. You don't feel it yet, not completely, but your reality has already started rearranging itself, and this video is here to complete that process. Here's what I need you to understand. You're not the same person you were 3 months ago. You're not even the same person you were last week. Something inside you has fundamentally changed. Your frequency has shifted. And when your frequency shifts, the field responds. It has to. That's not mysticism. That's physics. But here's the problem. Your conscious mind hasn't caught up yet. You're still operating from the old template. You're still thinking the old thoughts, repeating the old patterns, expecting the old results. And that disconnect, that gap between who you've become and who you think you are, that's what's creating the friction you've been feeling. You know what I'm talking about. You've been noticing things, small things at first, synchronicities that feel too specific to ignore. Numbers appearing at the exact moment you're thinking about something. Someone texting you the second you think of them. Conversations that seem to answer questions you haven't asked out loud. You've been catching these moments, and every time you do, there's this split second where you think, wait, what was that? And then you brush it off, because what else are you supposed to do with it? You can't exactly bring this up in normal conversation. You can't tell your coworker that the universe seems to be responding to your thoughts. You can't explain to your friend that time feels different now, that some days stretch impossibly long and others collapse into nothing. You can't describe the sensation of standing in a room full of people and feeling like you're watching yourself from outside your own body, like you're here but not here, present but detached, so you stay quiet. You keep these experiences to yourself, and that isolation, that sense of being the only one noticing these things, it makes you question whether any of it is real. But it is real, and you're not alone. What you're experiencing has a name. Consciousness researchers call it a phase transition. Quantum physicists would call it a collapse into a new probability state. But the simplest way to describe it is this. You've stepped into a different frequency band, and your old reality is no longer compatible with where you are now. Think of it like this. Your entire life, you've been tuned to a specific radio station. You didn't choose it. It was set for you by your environment, your upbringing, your culture, your past experiences. And for a long time, that station played the same songs over and over. Same thoughts, same beliefs, same patterns, same outcomes. You got so used to it that you stopped noticing the songs were repeating. But recently, something shifted. Maybe it was a crisis. Maybe it was a quiet realization. Maybe it was a moment where you finally admitted to yourself that the life you've been living doesn't feel like yours anymore. Whatever it was, it tuned the dial. Just a little. Just enough. And now you're picking up a different signal. The problem is, you're still surrounded by people who are tuned to the old station. They're still listening to the same songs, living the same loops. And when you try to tell them what you're hearing, they don't get it. They can't. They're not on your frequency anymore. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Because when your frequency changes, your reality has to change with it. That's not optional. The field doesn't let you stay in a mismatched state for long. It will either pull you back to where you were, or it will push you forward into alignment. And right now, you're in the middle of that push. You've been feeling it, haven't you? This restlessness, this low-level anxiety that doesn't have a clear source. You wake up and something feels off, but you can't pinpoint what. You look at your routines and they feel hollow. You talk to the same people and the conversations feel shallow. You go through the motions, but there's this nagging sense that you're wasting time, that you're supposed to be doing something else, being somewhere else, living a different version of your life. That's not anxiety. That's frequency mismatch. Your new state is trying to pull you forward, and your old environment is trying to hold you back. You're caught between two realities, and the tension of that is what you're feeling in your body. Here's the part most people don't understand. Once the shift starts, you can't go back. You can try. You can force yourself back into the old patterns, the old relationships, the old identity. But it won't fit anymore. It's like trying to wear clothes from when you were 15. Technically, you can put them on, but they don't fit. They're uncomfortable. They restrict your movement. And everyone can see that they don't belong to who you are now. Your old life is those clothes, and no matter how hard you try to make them fit, they won't, because you've outgrown them. Now, I know what you're thinking. If I've already shifted, if the upgrade has already happened, then why doesn't my life look different yet? Why am I still dealing with the same situations, the same struggles, the same limitations? If my frequency has changed, where are the results? And that's the exact question we need to answer. Because here's the truth. The shift has happened in the field, but it hasn't fully materialized in your physical reality yet. There's a lag time, a gap between the energetic change and the physical change. And that gap, that's where most people lose it. They feel the shift, they sense something has changed, but when they don't see immediate evidence in their external world, they assume nothing happened. They fall back into doubt, and doubt collapses the new probability. That's what this video is here to prevent. Because you didn't click on this by accident. You clicked on it because some part of you knows that you're in the completion phase. The upgrade has been downloaded, but it hasn't been installed yet. And installation requires conscious participation. It requires you to close the gap between the internal shift and the external manifestation. Let me tell you what's really happening right now. Your quantum field, the energetic blueprint that generates your reality, has restructured itself. It's no longer organized around your old identity. It's organized around a new template, a higher frequency version of you. And that version is already living a different life. Not in the future. Right now, in a parallel probability state. Scientists used to think parallel realities were science fiction. They're not. Quantum mechanics has shown us that reality exists in superposition. Multiple versions of the same system existing simultaneously until observation collapses one of them into manifestation. You are that system, and you have multiple versions of yourself, living multiple versions of your life, in different probability states. The version you're experiencing right now, the one that feels limiting and frustrating, that's just one probability. But there's another version, one where the upgrade has fully integrated, one where your external reality matches your internal frequency. And that version is just as real as this one. The only difference is which one you're observing, which one you're collapsing into physical form. And here's the thing. You've already started observing the new one. Those synchronicities you've been noticing. Those aren't coincidences. They're evidence. They're bleed through moments where the new probability is breaking into this one. They're proof that the version of you that's already living the upgraded life is trying to get your attention. You're standing at a threshold right now, 1 foot in the old reality, 1 foot in the new. And the reason this feels so disorienting is because you're not fully committed to either side yet. You're hedging, you're keeping one hand on the old life, just in case the new one doesn't work out. And I get it. That makes sense. The old life is familiar. It's safe. It's known. Even if it's not fulfilling. At least it's predictable. But here's what you need to understand. The threshold doesn't last forever. The field will not hold this in-between state indefinitely. It's energetically expensive. It creates drag. And eventually, the system will resolve itself. Either you'll collapse back into the old probability, or you'll collapse forward into the new one. The choice is yours, but you have to make it consciously. Because if you don't, the default will make it for you. This is why the video found you. This is why you're here. Because your field sent out a signal that said, I'm ready to complete this. I'm ready to close the gap. I'm ready to stop straddling two realities and fully step into the new one. And that signal, that readiness, that's what created the resonance that brought you to these words. So let's talk about what completion actually looks like. Let's talk about how you move from the in-between state into full alignment. Because it's not about waiting for your external reality to change. It's not about hoping the universe will finally deliver the evidence you've been asking for. It's about understanding that you are the mechanism. You are the one who collapses probability. And once you understand how that mechanism works, you can use it intentionally. But before we get there, I need to tell you something. There's a reason most people never complete this transition. There's a reason they feel the shift, they sense the upgrade, but they never actually experience the new reality. And it has nothing to do with worthiness or readiness or timing. It has everything to do with recognition. You have to recognize where you are in the process. You have to see the evidence that's already showing up. Because if you keep waiting for some big, dramatic proof that everything has changed, you'll miss the small, quiet signals that are telling you it already has. Those moments where time feels elastic, that's your consciousness expanding beyond the linear. Those synchronicities that feel too specific to be random, that's the field responding to your new frequency. That sense of detachment you feel sometimes, like you're watching your life from a distance. That's your awareness beginning to operate from a higher vantage point. These aren't problems. These aren't glitches. These are confirmations. These are the system telling you that the upgrade is working. But you have to recognize them as such, because if you interpret them as weirdness or anxiety or something being wrong, you'll resist the process. And resistance slows the collapse. It keeps you in the in-between state longer than necessary. So how do you stop resisting? How do you accelerate the collapse? You stop treating this like something that might happen and start operating from the reality that it already has. Let me explain what I mean. In quantum mechanics, there's something called the observer effect. It's been demonstrated in laboratories thousands of times. When you observe a quantum particle, the act of observation changes its state. Before observation, the particle exists in what's called superposition, meaning it's in multiple states at once. But the moment you observe it, the moment you measure it, it collapses into one specific state. You are doing this constantly. Every moment, your consciousness is observing reality, and that observation is collapsing probability into physical form. The life you're living right now is the accumulated result of what you've been observing, what you've been expecting, what you've been believing is possible. And here's where it gets interesting. Your observation isn't just visual. It's not just what you see with your eyes. Your observation is composed of your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, your assumptions, your habitual patterns of attention. All of that together creates a coherent signal, and that signal determines what collapses from the field of possibility into your physical experience. So when your frequency shifts, when the upgrade happens, your observation changes. You start noticing different things. You start thinking different thoughts. You start feeling different emotions. And that new pattern of observation begins to collapse a different set of probabilities. But here's the catch. If your conscious mind doesn't recognize that the shift has happened, if you keep identifying with the old version of yourself, then you'll keep observing from the old pattern. You'll keep expecting the old results, and the field will keep delivering them, because that's what you're observing for. This is why recognition is so critical. You have to consciously acknowledge that you are not who you used to be. You have to update your self-concept to match your new frequency. Because if you don't, you'll keep collapsing the old reality, even though you're no longer energetically aligned with it. Think about it like this. Imagine you got a promotion at work, but you still keep showing up and doing your old job. You still sit at your old desk. You still take orders from your old boss. You still think of yourself as the person you were before the promotion. Technically, you have the new position. The paperwork has been filed. The upgrade has been approved. But you're not living it. You're not embodying it. And so, the benefits of the promotion never materialize in your actual experience. That's what's happening right now. The promotion has been approved. The frequency has shifted. The upgrade has been downloaded. But you're still showing up as the old version of yourself. You're still thinking the old thoughts, still running the old programs, still expecting the old limitations. And the universe, the quantum field, it doesn't argue with you. It doesn't force you into the new reality. It simply reflects back whatever version of yourself you're identifying with. If you identify with the upgraded version, you get the upgraded experience. If you identify with the old version, you get the old experience. It's neutral, it's mechanical, it's law. So the question isn't whether the shift has happened. It has. The question is whether you're going to recognize it and start living from it, or whether you're going to stay in the old identity and watch the new reality slip away. Now, I know some of you are thinking, this sounds like positive thinking. This sounds like just believe it and it will happen. And I need to be very clear. This is not that. Positive thinking is trying to override your reality with forced optimism. This is different. This is about aligning your observation with your actual frequency. You're not pretending to be someone you're not. You're recognizing who you've already become. There's a concept in quantum field theory called coherence. When a system is coherent, all of its parts are aligned. They're vibrating at the same frequency. They're moving in the same direction. And when that happens, the system becomes exponentially more powerful. Laser light is coherent light. All the photons are moving in phase with each other. That's why a laser can cut through steel while a regular light bulb can't. Same light, different coherence. Your consciousness works the same way. When your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, your identity, when all of these are aligned around the same frequency, you become coherent. And a coherent consciousness collapses reality faster and with more precision than a fragmented one. Right now, you're fragmented. Part of you knows the shift has happened. Part of you is still clinging to the old story. Part of you is excited about the new possibilities. Part of you is terrified that nothing will actually change. That fragmentation is creating interference in your field, and that interference is slowing down the manifestation of the new reality. The completion process is about resolving that fragmentation. It's about bringing all parts of yourself into alignment with the new frequency. And once that happens, once you achieve coherence, the external reality snaps into place almost immediately. I've seen this happen over and over, not just in my own life, but in the lives of hundreds of people I've worked with. There's always this moment right before the breakthrough where everything feels impossible, where the old life is falling apart, but the new life hasn't shown up yet, where the synchronicities are happening, but the circumstances aren't changing. And in that moment, most people panic. They think they did something wrong. They think the universe abandoned them. They think they misunderstood the whole thing. But that moment, that uncomfortable in-between space, that's not failure. That's the final test. That's the field checking to see if you're really committed to the new reality, or if you're going to collapse back into the old one at the first sign of difficulty. And here's what I've learned. The people who make it through that moment, the people who actually complete the transition, they all do one specific thing. They stop looking for evidence in their external circumstances, and they start finding evidence in their internal state. They notice that even though their bank account hasn't changed yet, their relationship with money has. They notice that even though they haven't met their person, yet their capacity to receive love has expanded. They notice that even though the physical manifestation hasn't arrived, the energetic signature of it is already present in their field, and they trust that. They treat that internal evidence as more real than the external circumstances. And that's what allows the collapse to complete. Because here's the thing about quantum collapse. It doesn't happen from the outside in. It happens from the inside out. The internal state always precedes the external form. Always. There are no exceptions to this. You cannot experience something externally that you haven't first generated internally. That's not how reality works. So when you're waiting for your life to change before you start feeling different, you've got it backwards. You have to feel different first. You have to embody the new frequency first. You have to become coherent with the upgraded version first. And then, because the field has no choice, the external reality will rearrange itself to match. This is not belief. This is not faith. This is mechanics. Consciousness researchers have measured this. When a person's brain wave patterns shift into coherence, their electromagnetic field becomes measurably stronger. And that field, that's what's interacting with the quantum field. That's what's collapsing probability. So when your field becomes coherent, when all parts of you are aligned, the collapse happens faster because the signal is stronger. You've probably heard of the double-slit experiment. It's one of the foundational experiments in quantum physics. Scientists fire particles at a screen with 2 slits in it. And what they discovered is that the particles behave differently depending on whether they're being observed or not. When no one is watching, the particles act like waves and create an interference pattern. But when someone observes them, they act like particles and create 2 distinct lines. The act of observation changes the behavior of matter. That's not theory. That's measurable, repeatable, demonstrable fact. And it's happening in your life right now. The reality you're experiencing is behaving the way it is because of how you're observing it. Change your observation, and you change the behavior of reality. But observation isn't passive. You're not just watching reality unfold. You're actively participating in its creation through the quality of your attention, through the coherence of your field, through the frequency you're broadcasting. And here's what most people miss. The universe doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you are. You can want something desperately. You can visualize it every day. You can affirm it 1,000 times. But if your underlying frequency is still broadcasting lack, if your identity is still rooted in the old story, if your field is still fragmented and incoherent, then the collapse will reflect that. The universe will keep showing you more lack, more of the old story, more fragmentation. Not because it's punishing you, because it's mirroring you. So the real work isn't about changing what you want. It's about changing what you are. It's about shifting from wanting the upgraded life to being the person who already lives it. And that shift, that's what completes the process. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't always understand this. For the longest time, I was doing exactly what I just described. I was waiting for my life to change so I could feel different. I was looking for external proof before I would allow myself to fully step into the new version. I was hedging. I was playing it safe. I was keeping one foot in the old reality just in case. And it kept me stuck for years. I remember this one specific period in my life. I had just gone through a massive shift. Everything I thought I knew about myself had been dismantled. My relationship ended. My career wasn't working. My entire identity was in pieces. And for a while I was lost. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. I felt like I was floating in this void with no direction and no clarity. But then something strange started happening. I started having these dreams, vivid dreams, dreams that felt more real than waking life. And in one of these dreams, I was standing in front of this building. It was a blue building, modern architecture, glass and steel, and I was just standing there, looking up at it. I didn't know what the building was. I didn't know why I was there. But the feeling I had in that dream, it was so specific. It was this mix of anticipation and certainty, like I knew something important was about to happen. I woke up from that dream and I couldn't shake it. The image of that blue building stayed with me. I'd be going about my day, and I'd suddenly remember it. I'd see that building in my mind, and feel that same feeling. But I had no context for it. I'd never seen that building in real life. I had no idea what it meant. 6 months passed, 6 months of feeling like I was in limbo. 6 months of the old life not working anymore, but the new life not showing up yet. 6 months of questioning whether I was losing my mind or actually going through some kind of transformation. And then I got a call. A recruiter reached out about a position, a role I hadn't applied for, a company I'd never heard of. But something about the opportunity felt right. Not logically right, energetically right. So I said yes to the interview. They gave me an address. I put it in my phone and drove there. And when I pulled up, when I parked across the street and looked up at the building, my entire body went cold. It was the blue building, the exact building from my dream. Same architecture, same glass, same everything. I sat in my car for 5 minutes just staring at it, trying to process what I was looking at. I went into that interview, and I already knew I was going to get the job. Not because I hoped I would. Not because I was confident in my skills. I knew it because 6 months earlier, I had already been there. Some part of me, some version of me operating at a different level of consciousness, had already experienced this moment, had already collapsed this probability. And all I was doing now was catching up to it. I got the job. And it wasn't just any job. It was the exact opportunity I needed to completely rebuild my life. It gave me the resources, the connections, the platform to step fully into the new version of myself. That blue building became the doorway between the old reality and the new one. And the moment I walked through it, everything started accelerating. But here's what I need you to understand. That manifestation didn't happen because I visualized it. I wasn't trying to create that building or that job. I had never seen that building before the dream. I didn't even know what I was looking for. The manifestation happened because my frequency had already shifted. The upgrade had already occurred. And that dream, that was my higher consciousness showing me evidence of the new timeline before my physical reality had caught up to it. That's how this works. The internal shift always happens first. The frequency change always precedes the physical change. And if you're attuned enough, if you're paying attention to the right signals, you'll start getting previews, dreams, visions, sudden knowings, unexplainable certainties about things that haven't happened yet. These aren't fantasies. These aren't wishful thinking. These are communications from the version of you that's already living the upgraded reality. And the reason I'm telling you this story is because I need you to understand something. When I was in that 6-month gap, when I was stuck in the in-between, I almost gave up. I almost collapsed back into the old reality. I almost convinced myself that the shift wasn't real, that I was making it all up, that I should just accept the limitations and stop reaching for something different. If I had done that, if I had let the doubt win, I never would have taken that call. I never would have gone to that interview. I never would have walked through that door. The opportunity would have passed me by, not because the universe took it away, but because I wouldn't have been in the right state to recognize it when it showed up. That's what happens when you collapse back into the old frequency. The new reality keeps offering itself to you, but you can't see it. You can't receive it, because you're not a vibrational match for it anymore. You've disqualified yourself through your own observation, through your own return to the old identity. So when I say this video is here to complete the process, this is what I mean. This is your reminder. This is your confirmation. This is the thing that's supposed to keep you from collapsing back. Because you're in that gap right now. You're in the in-between. And the temptation to give up, to go back to the familiar, to decide that none of this is real, the temptation is at its strongest right before the breakthrough. The field is testing you, not to punish you, not to make you prove your worthiness. It's testing you because the new reality requires a different level of commitment. It requires you to trust the internal evidence more than the external circumstances. It requires you to stay coherent, even when everything around you is telling you to fragment. It requires you to keep identifying with the upgraded version, even when the old version is screaming for your attention. And most people fail this test, not because they're not capable, not because they're not deserving. They fail it because they don't understand what's being asked of them. They think the test is about waiting patiently until the universe finally decides to reward them. But that's not the test. The test is about whether you can maintain the new frequency without external validation. Whether you can stay in coherence without proof. Whether you can embody the upgraded version before the upgraded circumstances show up. And if you can do that, if you can pass that test, then the collapse happens fast. Because you've demonstrated through your internal state that you're already living in the new reality. And the field has no choice but to reflect that back to you externally. So let's talk about how you actually do this. Let's talk about the specific mechanism. Because I don't want you to leave this video with just concepts. I want you to leave with something you can apply immediately, something that will accelerate the collapse and bring the new reality into physical form. There are 3 stages to completing the upgrade. 3 specific shifts you need to make in your consciousness. And once you make these shifts, once you integrate them into your daily awareness, the external reality begins to rearrange itself automatically. You don't have to force it. You don't have to manipulate it. You just have to maintain the internal state and let the field do its work. The first stage is recognition. You have to consciously recognize that the shift has already happened. Not that it's going to happen. Not that it might happen. That it has happened. Your frequency has already changed. The upgrade has already been downloaded. The new version of you already exists. This is not something you're trying to create. This is something you're learning to recognize. And the way you practice recognition is simple. Every time you notice a synchronicity, every time something happens that feels too aligned to be random, you don't brush it off. You acknowledge it. You say, either out loud or in your mind, I see this. I recognize this as evidence of the new frequency. This is the field responding to who I've become. You're training your conscious mind to identify the signals that are already showing up, instead of dismissing them as coincidence. The second stage is embodiment. Recognition is intellectual. Embodiment is experiential. This is where you start feeling like the upgraded version, instead of just knowing about it. And the way you do this is through what I call identity anchoring. You choose specific moments throughout your day where you consciously step into the new version. Not for hours, not even for a full day, just for moments, 30 seconds here, a minute there. You close your eyes, you take a breath, and you ask yourself, how would I feel right now if the upgrade was already complete? How would I move through this moment? What would I notice? What would I think? What would I expect? And then you let yourself feel that. You let yourself inhabit that state. Even if it's just for 30 seconds. Even if your circumstances haven't changed. Even if there's no external evidence yet. You give yourself permission to feel it anyway. Because feeling is the language of the quantum field, thought is too slow. Action is too late. Feeling is the signal that collapses probability. And when you practice feeling like the upgraded version, even in short bursts, you're sending a coherent signal into the field. You're telling the universe, this is what I am now. This is the reality I'm observing for. And here's the thing about embodiment. You don't have to maintain it all day. You don't have to be in that state every second. You just have to touch it regularly. You just have to remind your system what the new frequency feels like. Because every time you do, you're reinforcing the pattern. You're deepening the groove. You're making it easier for your consciousness to default to that state instead of the old one. The third stage is permission. This is the one most people skip. And it's the reason the collapse stalls. You can recognize the shift. You can practice embodying it. But if you don't give yourself permission to actually receive the new reality, if you're still carrying guilt or unworthiness or the belief that you don't deserve the upgrade, then you'll unconsciously sabotage the manifestation. Permission is about releasing the attachment to the old story. It's about letting go of the identity that says you're the person who struggles, who fails, who never gets what they want. It's about consciously deciding that you're allowed to be the person who experiences ease, who receives abundance, who lives in alignment. And that decision, that internal permission, that's what removes the final block between the energetic shift and the physical manifestation. You give yourself permission by making a statement. And it needs to be in present tense. It needs to be in first person. It needs to claim the new reality as already true. Something like this. I am already living in the upgraded reality. I give myself full permission to receive everything that's aligned with my new frequency. I release the old story, and I step completely into the new one. This is who I am now. You say it out loud. You say it like you mean it. And you say it regularly until it stops feeling like an affirmation and starts feeling like a fact. Now, before we go any further, I want you to do something. Right now, not later, not after the video. Right now, I want you to pause for 30 seconds and practice the embodiment stage. Close your eyes if you're somewhere you can do that safely. Take a slow breath and ask yourself, how would I feel if the upgrade I've been sensing was already complete? What would that feel like in my body? And just let yourself feel it. Don't analyze it. Don't question whether you're doing it right. Just feel it. 30 seconds, that's all. And then come back. Go ahead, I'll wait. Welcome back. What you just did, that 30-second practice that sent a signal into the quantum field. That signal said, I'm ready, I'm coherent, I'm aligned, and the field received it. Now it's your job to keep sending that signal. Not constantly, not obsessively, just regularly. A few times a day, 30 seconds here, a minute there. Every time you do it, you're reinforcing the new pattern. You're making the collapse more likely. You're accelerating the timeline. But here's what you need to know. The moment you start doing this, the moment you start sending that coherent signal, your old reality is going to push back. And this is where most people lose the game. They think the pushback means they're doing something wrong. They think resistance is a sign that the upgrade isn't real. But it's the opposite. Resistance is confirmation. It's proof that you're threatening the old structure. Think of it this way. Your old reality, your old patterns, your old identity, they've been running your life for years, maybe decades. They've built an entire infrastructure around, keeping you exactly where you are. Not because they're evil, not because they want to hurt you, because that's their job. Their job is to maintain homeostasis. Their job is to keep you safe by keeping you the same. And when you start changing your frequency, when you start collapsing a new probability, that infrastructure feels threatened. It interprets change as danger. And so, it activates every defense mechanism it has to pull you back into the familiar. It will flood you with doubt. It will manufacture fear. It will create situations that seem to prove that the old story was right all along. It will bring people into your life who reinforce your limitations. It will trigger every insecurity, every wound, every piece of conditioning that's ever kept you small. And all of this will happen right after you start practicing the 3 stages. Right after you start feeling hopeful. Right after you start sensing that the new reality is actually possible. That's not coincidence. That's the old system fighting for its survival. So when the doubt shows up, when the fear comes, when circumstances seem to get worse instead of better, you have to understand what's actually happening. You're not moving backwards. You're being tested. The field is checking to see if you're committed to the new frequency, or if you're going to let the old pattern scare you back into place. And here's what I need you to remember during that test. The intensity of the resistance is proportional to the magnitude of the shift. If the pushback feels overwhelming, if it feels like everything is falling apart, that's actually good news. That means the upgrade is significant. That means you're not making a small adjustment. You're making a fundamental transformation. And fundamental transformations require the complete dismantling of the old structure before the new one can be built. I know that's not comforting when you're in the middle of it. I know it doesn't feel good when your bank account is empty and your relationship is ending and your health is acting up and every single area of your life seems to be in crisis at the same time. But that crisis, that's not punishment. That's purging. That's the old frequency collapsing, so the new one has room to emerge. The people who make it through this phase, the ones who actually complete the transition, they all have one thing in common. They stay in the embodiment practice, even when there's no evidence, even when circumstances are screaming at them to give up, even when everyone around them is telling them they're delusional. They keep touching that feeling. They keep sending that signal. They keep identifying with the upgraded version. And they do it not because they're seeing results, but because they understand that the results can't show up until they've proven they can maintain the frequency without them. That's the real test. Can you stay coherent when everything external is incoherent? Can you stay in the new identity when the old circumstances are still surrounding you? Can you trust the internal evidence when the external evidence is contradicting it? Because if you can hold that state through the resistance, then the collapse happens. The new reality materializes. The upgrade completes. But you have to outlast the pushback. You have to be willing to feel uncomfortable in the transition. And discomfort is guaranteed. You're going to have days where you question everything, where you wonder if you've lost your mind, where you feel stupid for believing any of this was real. You're going to have moments where you're tempted to go back to the old life, the old job, the old relationship, the old version of yourself, just to make the discomfort stop. And in those moments, you have to remember why you started this in the first place. You started this because the old life wasn't working. You started this because staying the same was more painful than changing. You started this because some part of you knew there was another way to exist, another version of reality available to you, and you couldn't unsee that once you saw it. So when the discomfort comes, when the doubt comes, when the fear comes, you don't let it derail you. You let it move through you. You acknowledge it. You say, I see you. I know what you are. You're the old pattern trying to survive, and I'm not going back. That's how you handle the resistance. Not by fighting it, not by trying to positive think your way through it, but by recognizing it for what it is. A death rattle. The final attempt of the old system to maintain control. And once you see it that way, once you understand that the resistance is actually evidence that you're winning, it loses its power over you. Now, there's one more thing you need to know about this phase. As you're moving through the resistance, as you're practicing the 3 stages and maintaining your frequency, you're going to start noticing changes. Small changes at first, things that seem insignificant. A random text from someone you haven't talked to in years, an unexpected check in the mail, a job opportunity that comes out of nowhere, a conversation that answers a question you've been holding. These are not accidents. These are the new reality starting to bleed through. And what you do with these small signals determines how fast the big manifestations show up. Most people dismiss them. They say, oh, that's nice, but it's not the real thing yet. It's not the relationship I want. It's not the amount of money I need. It's not the career I'm looking for. And by dismissing the small signals, they're actually telling the field, I'm not ready. I'm not paying attention. I don't recognize the evidence when it shows up. And so the field stops sending signals. It stops offering previews. Because you've demonstrated that you're not going to receive them anyway. But if you do the opposite, if you treat every small signal like it's significant, if you acknowledge every synchronicity, if you celebrate every tiny shift, then you're telling the field, I see you. I'm tracking this. I'm in coherence with what you're showing me. Keep going. And the field responds by sending bigger signals, more obvious synchronicities, more tangible shifts, until eventually the big manifestations start showing up. Not because you earned them, not because you finally did enough, but because you demonstrated through your attention and your gratitude that you're ready to receive them. This is why gratitude works. Not because you're tricking the universe into giving you more, but because gratitude is a signal of coherence. When you're grateful for what's showing up, even when it's small, you're saying, I recognize this as part of the new reality. I'm in alignment with this. And that recognition, that alignment, that's what keeps the collapse moving forward. So your job right now, as you're moving through this completion phase, is to become obsessed with noticing the small shifts, the synchronicities, the unexpected openings, the moments where time feels different or reality feels flexible. Don't wait for the big proof. Start celebrating the small evidence. Start treating every signal like it's confirmation that the upgrade is working. Because it is. And the more you acknowledge that, the faster the rest of it shows up. There's a principle in quantum mechanics called the Zeno effect. It states that if you continuously observe a quantum system, you can actually freeze it in a particular state. The act of repeated observation prevents the system from evolving. Now, that might sound like a bad thing, but here's how it applies to what we're talking about. If you keep observing the old reality, if you keep focusing on what's not working, what's not here yet, what's still broken, you're freezing that state. You're preventing the evolution into the new reality. But if you shift your observation, if you start watching for the signals of the new reality instead, if you start looking for evidence of the upgrade instead of evidence of the lack, then you're allowing the system to evolve. You're giving permission for the new state to emerge. Your observation is no longer holding the old pattern in place. It's now supporting the new pattern. This is not about ignoring your problems. This is not about pretending everything is fine when it's not. This is about understanding that where you place your attention determines what continues and what dissolves. And if you want the old reality to dissolve and the new one to emerge, you have to stop feeding the old one with your observation. You have to stop rehearsing the old story. You have to stop identifying with the old limitations. And you have to start observing for the new. That's the practice. That's the discipline. And it's harder than it sounds. Because your brain is wired to look for problems. It's wired to scan for threats. It's wired to focus on what's wrong so it can fix it. That's survival programming. And it's kept you alive, but it's also kept you stuck. Because what you focus on expands. And if you're constantly focusing on what's not working, you're constantly generating more of what's not working. So you have to retrain your brain. You have to teach it to look for the signals of the new reality instead. And the way you do that is through consistent practice. Every morning, before you do anything else, you ask yourself, what evidence of the upgrade am I going to look for today? What signals am I going to watch for? What synchronicities am I going to acknowledge? You set the intention. You prime your observation. And then you move through your day with that awareness active. And every night, before you go to sleep, you review the day. You ask yourself, what signals showed up today? What synchronicities did I notice? What small shifts happened that I might have dismissed? You train yourself to see the evidence. And over time, you'll start seeing it everywhere. Not because it suddenly appeared, but because you finally learned how to recognize it. This is the difference between people who complete the upgrade and people who stay stuck in the in-between. The ones who complete it have trained themselves to observe differently. They've retrained their attention. They've shifted their focus from the absence of the new reality to the emergence of it. And that shift in observation is what allows the collapse to finish. Now, here's something most people don't talk about. As you're going through this process, as you're practicing the 3 stages and retraining your observation, you're going to encounter something unexpected. Other people are going to start acting strange around you. Not everyone, but certain people. The ones who were deeply connected to your old frequency. They're going to sense the shift, even if they can't articulate it. And they're going to react. Some of them will pull away. They'll stop calling. They'll stop texting. They'll create distance without explanation. And that's going to hurt. You're going to wonder what you did wrong. You're going to question whether you should reach out, whether you should try to fix it. But here's what's actually happening. Your frequency has changed, and their system recognizes that you're no longer a match. They're not consciously choosing to pull away. Their field is doing it automatically because the resonance is gone. Other people will do the opposite. They'll cling harder. They'll suddenly need you more. They'll create drama or crisis that demands your attention. They'll try to pull you back into the old dynamic. And this is going to be even more confusing because it looks like connection. It looks like they care. But what's actually happening is their system is trying to keep you locked into the old frequency because that's where they know how to relate to you. Your upgrade threatens the relationship structure they've built with you, and unconsciously, they're trying to prevent the change. And then there's a third group, people who will suddenly get angry, defensive, critical. They'll tell you you've changed, and they won't mean it as a compliment. They'll accuse you of being different, of thinking you're better than everyone else, of abandoning your roots or forgetting where you came from. And what they're really saying is, your evolution is making me uncomfortable. Your growth is reflecting my stagnation. Your willingness to change is highlighting my refusal to change. And I don't like what I'm seeing. You need to be prepared for all three reactions, because they're coming. And if you're not ready for them, they'll derail you. You'll start questioning whether the upgrade is worth it. You'll start wondering if you should just go back to who you were so you don't lose these relationships. You'll convince yourself that staying the same is more loving, more loyal, more acceptable than evolving. But that's the old pattern talking. That's the fear of isolation. That's the conditioning that says you're only valuable if people approve of you. And if you let that fear control you, if you shrink back down to make others comfortable, you'll abort the process. You'll collapse back into the old frequency. And all the work you've done, all the discomfort you've moved through, it will have been for nothing. So here's what you do instead. You let people respond however they need to respond. You don't chase the ones who pull away. You don't overextend for the ones who cling. And you don't defend yourself to the ones who criticize. You simply hold your frequency. You stay in your practice. You keep embodying the upgraded version. And you trust that the field will bring you the people who are aligned with where you are now, not where you used to be. This doesn't mean you're better than anyone. This doesn't mean you're abandoning people. This just means you're honoring the shift that's happened inside you. And you're allowing the external reality to catch up to that shift. Some relationships will survive the transition. They'll evolve with you. The person will recognize what's happening, and they'll either do their own work to match your frequency, or they'll genuinely celebrate your growth without needing to change themselves. Those relationships become deeper, more authentic, more real. But some relationships won't make it. And that's not failure. That's completion. Those relationships served a purpose in the old reality. They supported the old version of you, and now that version is gone. The relationship has fulfilled its purpose, and trying to force it to continue past its expiration date creates suffering for both people. So you honor what was, you feel the grief of the ending, and you release it with gratitude. That's maturity. That's wisdom. That's frequency alignment. The hardest part of this whole process isn't the internal work. It's the external consequences. It's watching your life rearrange itself in ways you didn't ask for. It's losing people you thought would be there forever. It's seeing opportunities close and structures collapse, and everything you thought was stable suddenly becoming uncertain. That's what makes people turn back. That's what makes people decide the upgrade isn't worth it. But I'm telling you right now, it is worth it. Every uncomfortable moment, every difficult conversation, every relationship that ends, every structure that falls apart, all of it is making room for something better. All of it is clearing space for the new reality to emerge. And on the other side of this transition, you're going to look back and understand why it all had to happen exactly the way it did. You're going to meet people who see you for who you actually are, not who you used to be. You're going to find opportunities that are aligned with your new frequency, not your old limitations. You're going to experience a level of ease and flow and synchronicity that you didn't even know was possible. And you're going to realize that the version of you that was so scared to let go, that was so afraid of losing the old life, that version had no idea what was waiting on the other side. But you only get to experience that if you complete the process, if you make it through the resistance, if you outlast the pushback, if you keep practicing the 3 stages even when there's no evidence, if you stay in coherence when everything around you is chaotic, if you trust the internal shift more than the external circumstances. And that's where we are right now. You're in the final phase. The upgrade has been downloaded. The frequency has shifted. The new reality is trying to emerge. And the only thing standing between where you are and where you're going is your willingness to stay in the practice long enough for the collapse to complete. So I'm going to ask you to do something. Right now, in the comments, I want you to type 1 sentence, not a question, not a doubt, a declaration, something that claims the new reality as already true, something in present tense, something in first person, something like, I am living in complete alignment with my highest frequency, or I am the version of myself that I've been becoming, or the upgrade is complete, and I'm receiving everything that's aligned with who I am now. Whatever your sentence is, type it. Say it out loud as you type it. And understand that this is not just a comment for the algorithm. This is a signal you're sending into the quantum field. This is your consciousness making a declaration. This is you claiming the new reality. And the field will respond to that. Not because typing words has magic power, but because the act of declaring something shifts your internal state. It moves you from hoping to claiming, from wanting to being. And that shift, that's what completes the collapse. So go ahead, leave your declaration. And don't overthink it, just let it come through. The right words will show up. Type it now, I'll wait. And after you do that, hit the subscribe button. Not because I need subscribers, but because subscribing is another act of commitment. It's you saying, I'm not treating this like a random video I stumbled on. I'm treating this like a resource. I'm treating this like part of my process. I'm aligning myself with this frequency, and I want to stay connected to it. That decision, that small action, it reinforces the internal shift you're making. It tells your system, I'm serious about this. I'm not hedging anymore. I'm all in. And turn on notifications. Because what's coming next, what I'm going to share in the next video, it's going to show you something that most people never discover. There's a specific moment in the manifestation process where reality becomes completely flexible, where the boundaries between what is and what could be dissolve entirely. And if you know how to recognize that moment, if you know how to move when it arrives, you can collapse years of gradual change into a single instant. I'm going to show you how to identify that moment, how to prepare for it, and how to use it. But you have to be here when that video drops. You have to be in the right state to receive it. Because that information, it only works if you've already completed the upgrade we've been talking about in this video. It's the next level, and you can't skip levels. You have to complete this one first. So make the declaration. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. And then here's the last thing I want you to do. If you know someone who's going through this same transition, someone who's feeling the shift but doesn't have language for it, someone who's in the in-between and questioning whether they're losing their mind, send them this video. Don't explain it. Don't summarize it. Just send the link. Let them find their own way to it. Because if they're in the right frequency, they'll watch it. And if they watch it, they'll recognize themselves in it. And that recognition might be the thing that keeps them from collapsing back. You're not doing this alone. There are thousands of people right now going through the exact same process, feeling the exact same disorientation, questioning the exact same things. And when you connect with those people, when you find your frequency tribe, everything gets easier. The field becomes stronger. The coherence becomes more stable. The manifestations happen faster. So by sharing this, you're not just helping someone else. You're strengthening your own process. You're building the network that supports the new reality. This is not the end. This is the beginning. The upgrade has been completed. The frequency has shifted. The new reality is emerging. And you're standing at the threshold, ready to step through. Everything you've been sensing, everything you've been feeling, everything you've been questioning, it's all been real. You haven't been imagining it. You haven't been losing your mind. You've been going through a quantum shift in consciousness. And that shift, it's going to change everything. The question was never whether the upgrade was real. The question was whether you would recognize it and complete it. And by being here, by watching this video all the way through, by making it to this moment, you've answered that question. You're ready. You're committed. You're in. So let the completion happen. Let the old reality dissolve. Let the new one emerge, and trust that every step of this process, every uncomfortable moment, every unexpected change, all of it has been leading you exactly where you need to be. The upgrade is complete. You just needed to hear someone say it. Now you have. Now you know. Now you move forward as the version of yourself you've already become. No more waiting, no more questioning, no more hedging. You're here. And here is where everything changes. This is your moment. Take it.